So welcome to our Don's Dialogue webinar for April 16th. We are glad that you're here and looking forward to finishing up this school year with just over a month left. So thanks for joining us. We got a great Don's Dialogue. I'm going to take over your screen for just a minute and want to review real quickly our agenda for you all this morning. We're going to kick off with our student report. So Anna's here, and I think she was a little embarrassed at us dancing to Higher Love at the start of this webinar. So, I apologize for that. She's actually going to kick us off because she's got a class she's going to get back to. And then we have, we're going to hear from two departments today, our science and our math department at Akalani's. And that's why we've got James Poling here, who's our science department chair. And then we'll be joined by Vicki Zaleski, our math department chair as well. We're going to hear an athletic update as we're rounding out our first season of sports, even though it's the end of April, and with a brief highlight of what's coming next. I'm going to talk about the learning model options for next year that was just approved, hot off the press at the board meeting on Wednesday night. And then we're going to hear a little bit about some end of year events with a highlight and focus on our senior events. And an outline of what finals week is going to look like this year. So lots of good stuff and excited to be sharing with you all. We, of course, have to start with our Quarant-Meme of the month. And I just want to say, I feel this deeply. And I also know Andrea Powers feels this as well. Anyone who knows Andrea knows that she has a deep, deep love of Costco. But I also have vivid memories when my uncle would pick me up from high school. For an entire year, he was my carpool to high school, and 3 out of 5 days a week we would go by Costco on our way home because my uncle wanted to run through and get all the samples that Costco had to offer, which included one time Costco giving samples of mudslides and they didn't know it had alcohol in it, and so that was quite an experience as well. Anyways, but yes, this is true. The pandemic is not over until Costco offers free samples again. I also thought this was appropriate because while we are so excited to see things opening up and students back on campus and events and activities at our senior breakfast these last two days, we also know that the pandemic isn't over, and we want to encourage people to continue to follow those top 5 ways to protect yourself, your family, and our community. So we're continuing to drive those home with our students in our community as well. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our student report so we can hear about some of the updates. So I'll click it to the next slide here.
All right. Hi, I'm Anna Yanikos, and I'm Public Relations Officer on the ASB board. So this month is Earth Month, which is super exciting. And the Environmental Board in leadership has been doing a lot of programming. They have 2 weeks of events every single day. And so this week, they have been highlighting environmental clubs, and today at lunch they have a environmental Kahoot you can go play, and then next week they have different companies and foundations coming to talk about the environment and how you can help. And so this is just like a list of everyone who's coming. It's going to be all over Zoom, and it's at lunch every day. And then next week they are also starting Literati, which is an app that you can download and take pictures of trash. And the more trash you take pictures of you picking up and throwing away, the more points you get. And those points will be transferred into homecoming points, because I think my next slide is possibly, yes, homecoming. Homecoming is happening on the 26th. And so Literati will be points, hallway decorating, skits, and all of that. And so this is like a calendar outline of the week. We will have lunchtime activities every day and after school activities. And there will be virtual lunchtime activities as well as in-person ones. So if you're in cohort C, you can still attend homecoming activities. And then because there's no football game for the week of homecoming, we are doing a tailgate for the drama play at 6 p.m. on Friday. So you can go get food, candy, talk to your friends at 6, and then at 7, the viewing will start and you can watch the play. And then some other events to look forward to. We have ACA Day on the 22nd. It's going to be our last ACA day, but it's going to be so much fun. You can bring your dog dressed up in Dawn's gear, and there's going to be a competition where you can vote on the Instagram for the best dressed dog or cat if you don't have a dog. Or Walton was saying like hamster, bring any pet, but dogs dressed up. And then we're hosting the Special Olympics this year again. Normally it's bigger, but because of COVID, it's smaller. So it's just Akalani students, and it's on April 23rd from 10:30 to 12:30. And then we also have an equity council on April 23rd at 2:15. I think it's one of the last ones, so it will be a good one to go to. And then, like I said before, there's the drama play on the 1st and 2nd of May, and they're doing Macbeth and Midsummer. And so I think the 1st is Macbeth and the 2nd is Midsummer, which it will be very cool. And then there's also an instrumental concert on May 10th and the 12th. And then just highlighting a few groups on campus. Blueprint has just come out with their 7th issue and is currently working on their 8th issue. And they have been doing really well this year. So if you haven't read it already, you can go to akalanisblueprint.com or pick up a copy on campus because they're handing them out. And sports this week, softball, girls lacrosse, boys soccer, and baseball all had games, and other sports teams are starting up practice. I know volleyball had their first practice, I believe. And then with that, football also has senior night, which is exciting. And I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the quick highlight of some of the stuff coming up for the rest of this month and looking into May, and really appreciate it. So I know you got to get back to class, and glad you're able to join us, Anna. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, I also, I had introduced Mr. Poling earlier, but Mr. Poling is one of 2 chairs for our science department. And I'm going to take over your screens again because he has some information about science electives and pathways. And we'll talk a little bit about what science has looked like under this hybrid model. So James, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Excellent. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is a quick update on our NGSS science pathway. We just got to our 2nd year at Akalani's with the full 3-year pathway. That's 3 classes for our Frosh sophomore and then junior senior classes. Frosh take Living Earth, sophomores take Chemistry in the Earth System, and then juniors and seniors take Physics of the Universe or an AP Physics class alternative. So we've just gotten to the 4th year of offering this pathway, which means we are starting to see students who have gotten all the way through it. The first round of Living Earth students are now seniors, so we are getting to see all of the benefits of the interconnections between these different classes. So I know I've already talked about this pathway in other meetings, and you probably have heard a lot about it, so I'll keep it brief. But this pathway really makes up the backbone for our science department. Living Earth and Chemites, or Chemistry in the Earth System, kind of serve as a foundation for all of the higher level science classes and electives that students can take in their junior and senior year. We are really proud of this pathway. You know, the 3 different classes, they haven't all been offered the same amount of time. Living Earth has had 4 years, Chemistry has had 3 years, and then we've only had 2 years of Physics of the Universe. But we're already starting to find new and cool ways to keep these classes interconnected. Just this week, we built, in the class that I teach, Chemistry in the Earth System, we built on the carbon cycle that students learned about in Living Earth, and we added sort of a chemistry dimension to it by looking at these specific chemical reactions that drive Earth's carbon cycle. So I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate this pathway. We've worked really hard to make these 3 interconnected classes, and we're finally starting to see them all really come together now. I also wanted to give a quick update on CAASPP testing. CAASPP testing is happening right now, as you probably know. The ELA testing was on Monday, and the math testing is on Monday. I'm talking about this because normally there's also a CAASPP science test called the California Science Test. That is not being administered this year. So if you had any questions about that or was confused about why that test is not happening, it's because the district applied for a waiver from the state to forego that testing because of the pandemic conditions. So that's not coming down the road. That is not happening this year. And I think now we can talk about distance learning and the hybrid model and how we've adapted.
Are you seeing? I clicked the slide over, James. Are you
I am
not
not seeing it. No.
Shoot.
I know what I wrote.
Sharing.
I can just talk anyway.
Yeah. Well, why don't you talk? And then Mike, can you? I don't know why this keeps happening, but Mr. Plant, if you want to take over sharing screen, that'd be great. Okay.
Yeah.
So, James,
so
go ahead,
as it was difficult for almost all of our classes to adjust to the distance learning model, it was particularly hard for science classes because we are used to everything being hands-on and really getting a lot of opportunities for close collaboration with our students and for our students to collaborate with each other. And as we found out from distance learning, collaboration through a screen is just really, really hard. So our science department had to make a lot of tough choices for streamlining our curriculum down to make it work through distance learning. But I also think that we found some really clever ways to adapt our curriculum and kind of reinvent it. It wasn't the best conditions to force that kind of work, but I think the work that came out of it was still really positive. Obviously now being back in the hybrid model, we are so happy to be back in the classroom with our students, where we get to engage in collaboration, discussion, and critical thinking, and these skills that really you need to be face-to-face and you need to be in a group of your peers to engage in those skills. So we think that getting students back in the classroom has been a massive boost for our engagement. We know that science classes in particular, a lot of students felt disconnected during the distance learning period. So bringing students back into the classroom has just been amazing for engagement. Just hearing students argue about climate change in my room, like I'll settle for that. That's amazing. Just having those conversations take place where I can hear them. And also we learned several new tricks from the distance learning model. Not all of them were kept for hybrid, but some of them were. So some of those new tricks were like flipping your lesson plans, having a flipped classroom, students do more of their own like personal instruction at home, and then they come to you to do the labs or the big critical thinking type projects. We started using virtual notebooks instead of like regular notebooks more frequently throughout our department. And we've realized that there's just this wealth of online, particularly video content, that so much of it online is free. That's become an incredible resource that a lot of our science teachers have started using more of. So I also wanted to show you some sort of success stories from our different science classes coming back to hybrid. I don't know if we can transition to the next slide successfully, but I can describe the pictures that are on there. There they are. We've got some pictures here of different, what I consider success stories from the science department. So up in the top left, we've got the first round of pipetting by numbers, which is a really fun activity that Sydney Johnson, our biotech teacher, always does. It's very hands-on. It's a very like applicable, professional analytical biotech skill. So you've got students pipetting in little droplets of water to make the shape or to make a picture of our globe. You've got the balsa wood truss bridge, which is a major part of our engineering class taught by Misha Bushell. You've got up in the top right, you might not be able to see it, but you've got a paper version of a dissected cat. Our physiology class always likes to dissect cats during a regular school year. So for students that are in the classroom, they're working on a real dead cat, but I didn't want to show you a picture of that. So instead, I found a picture of what our distance learning students are doing right now. Our cohort C students are working on paper models of cats where each layer of paper represents a different organ or different muscle group. So they still get to engage with these dissections. And then down in the bottom left, you've got my science, which is chemistry, and it just looks like a bunch of math. And it might not look that impressive like the bridge or the pipetting by numbers, but just getting students to do work by hand in our classroom has felt like a success story because we get to have that close engagement and give a lot of good feedback that we weren't able to give through distance learning. So our science department update is mostly a message of positivity and gratefulness. We are so happy to be back in the classroom and getting back to our core competencies.
Yeah, James, thank you. If I can just speak to a couple things. One, I appreciate that you use the cat dissection in your success story because I feel like it's what I always go to when I talk about science labs. And so really cool to see and show to our parent community how we've been able to continue some of the high quality work that normally would need to be done in person because we weren't going to mail dead cats home to have people dissect.
We did consider it.
So I'm really glad that to kind of see these success stories and appreciate you sharing that. And of course, a huge shout out to LPI, who funds all of the supplies for all of our labs. And that shout out really is intended for the parent community who's so generous to give to our support organizations who help make that happen. So I really appreciate you sharing. A couple questions came up around what is NGSS? And you spoke to that at the beginning. It's our next generation science standards. It's part of a transition that we've been in for the last few years, as James has spoken to. And part of that transition is really wanting to build a succinct pathway through our what used to be called biology and is now living Earth, and then our chemistry of the Earth, and then our physics of the universe program, as James has outlined. I did want to acknowledge that our current graduation requirements are really 2 years of science. I believe it's a biological, like a life science, and then 1 year of a physical science.
Right.
However, so many more of our students take not just the minimum 2 year requirement, but many take a four years of science. And that is part of the consideration, because the CAASPP testing, or what's called the CAST testing, really does cover all the way through the physics of the universe component. Physics used to be a class on our campus that was a little bit more of a reach. It was it wasn't promoted as something that was necessarily accessible for all students, but was really designed at the time to be for students who are more interested in science pathways beyond high school. But what NGSS has really focused on is making science accessible for all students. And that's been what we've been focusing on. How do we take physics and make it that it is appropriate and successful for all students? Because we do believe that it's a value that all of our students should have, like those core classes going through. So it is something that I wouldn't be surprised if down the road it's something that we consider as a requirement, but it is currently not a requirement for our students, but we see most of our students taking those. So I did want to speak to that a little bit as well. I believe there were no other questions that came in for James. So Mr. Poling, thank you so much for taking time this morning. And you weren't even able to come in today, and but you're here with us. So really appreciate that, Mr. Poling. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for so much for giving me time to share.
All right. I'm now going to turn it over to our math department chair, Dr. Vicki Zaleski, who will be sharing with us about our math pathways. And I know she's got 2 screens right now, because I actually think she's going to do some interactive discussion with us. So Dr. Zaleski, take it away.
Can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Okay. All right, so let me see how this is gonna work. I did what you said, Travis, so I think I'll be able to do this. Okay.
And Mr. Plant, I think you can stop sharing, because you're gonna take over screens, right?
It says only host can share. Let me try again.
Oh, let's make sure you can. Let me make sure everyone can share. All panelists, sorry. You can now share.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. So I'm demonstrating what I do in my class right now. So here we go. Oh, it's doing something weird. Actually, it was operator error, which happens in the class too. All right, here we are. Okay, so what I want to show first is our math pathways, and then I also want to show you how we transitioned and how we keep on changing in hybrid learning and what's working for us in math. So basically, here are our pathways, and if you look at it, it is a little bit challenging to understand. There's a lot of arrows. Looks like a lot of complication. It is a flow chart that in my business school, my professor would have said, do that differently. That's complicated. But once you understand it, it's not so bad. So basically, the blue arrows represent entry points from middle school. So We have algebra A, B sequence as an entry point, algebra 1 as an entry point, geometry, and geometry advanced all as typical entry points. Algebra AB or algebra A would be an entry point for a student who might need a little bit more support. Both of that entry point is UC CSU eligible. So a student entering there will be just fine and be able to graduate and go to a four-year school. A lot of students go in at algebra 1. More advanced students enter at geometry. Even the most advanced students enter at geometry advanced. And those students typically would move from geometry advanced to algebra 2 pre-calc honors to calculus AB and then end up in calculus BC. So that is the most advanced pathway. Now, what I want to say is that, and I can clear the screen, which is really cool with an iPad, cleared, demonstrating what I do in class. So basically what I want to encourage is as students enter, they enter with the recommendation of their teacher so that they have a really great high school experience. So let me compare. So let's try with student A first. Student A goes with the recommendation and they start with algebra 1 and then they move to geometry. They were successful in both of those courses. So they moved to algebra 2 advanced and they end up in pre-calculus honors and they have a very positive high school experience, maybe getting all A's and B's. Let's say that student B, change colors just for fun, goes against recommendation and enters at geometry and they're struggling a little bit. So then they end up needing to move to algebra 2 because it's a little bit more challenging for them. They move to statistics their junior year. Math analysis is something we're not offering this year. We just didn't have enough signups. And then they end up their senior year in pre-calculus anyway with a very different experience than the student who entered as recommended. I don't know if that makes sense. Do you think it makes a little bit of sense? I had a cat crisis this morning, so I'm a little bit off.
I'm tracking, but I know the pathways well. So what our parents can, they can submit questions through a Q&A and we'll follow up if there's any questions that come in.
Okay, so please let me know if you're not tracking with that. All right, so that's just a typical example. Now I'd like to show you some of our successes. We have been very adaptive this year. Oh, and this can be found on the website. And if you need help with that, please feel free to email me. I'm happy to help you find it on the website, the pathway. I want to show you some of our successes. So I'm going to stop sharing this and share another screen, and hopefully I can do that successfully. So we've been trying to adapt and show some agency with how we teach. So I'm going to grab my Canvas page and show you some of the things that we've changed. So let me see if I can do that successfully. Yes, I have it right here. So here's my dashboard. And I keep on adapting what I do by checking in with my students constantly. What's working for you? What isn't working for you? What would work for you better? And that seems to be helping my kids out a lot. So let's go to statistics, because these are seniors. They have this thing called senioritis. I didn't really know that was a thing till I had seniors. And this is my dashboard. It's kind of simple, but I find that less is more in some cases. I put announcements on here. My kids email me sometimes because I'm human. Sometimes I forget to post things and they'll let me know it isn't posted. So then I'll put an announcement on my page that, look, it's open now. Thank you for letting me know. So here is my page. It's very simple, But my students were telling me, look, Zaleski, it's hard to find stuff. Can you please just put it on the page? So I have put it here. Here's how to get to the online textbook. You give it the finger, not the naughty finger, but this pointer finger, and they can click on it. They can click here to see the agenda. This is the agenda and instructions for every single day. They can click here for all the problem sets, any sort of videos on how to do the problems, our textbook login, and here's the assignments of what they're supposed to do. So if we have a quiz or a review, they can click on this and they know absolutely everything they're supposed to do. I also put on here when they have academy to come to because there are juniors and seniors in person, or when there's a virtual academy, so they know when they can click on that and enter into my virtual room. I just want to make sure that every single day of the week, I go Monday to Monday, they know when to come. Now, I feel like just about every person in the math department is doing it the same. That's another thing that we try to do. We try to be very collaborative in how we set things up. So no matter what teacher we have, what your student will have, we do tests that are created collaboratively, lessons that are created collaboratively. The timing is collaborative, so we end and start at the same moment. I think that's all I have, unless people have questions.
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry, I was trying not to laugh. I had never heard the naughty finger really got me.
I like it. Give it the finger. It gets a lot of laughs. You know, I tell really, really bad jokes, but that one gets laughs.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want you to think I was laughing at you, so I've been trying to stifle it. But yeah, no, thank you, Vicki. I appreciate it. I appreciate you highlighting the math pathways for us and sharing with our parents a little bit about some of the experience of hybrid learning and what that has looked like. So thank you. Appreciate it. And it doesn't look like there's any questions in there for you. So we'll let you go ahead and sign off and get back to, I know you're in the middle of class right now, actually. So you got a sub covering you for the short minute. So I'll let you get back to your students, but thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to our athletic director, Mr. Takahashi, and I know Ms. Powers works closely with him in our boosters organizations as well as they work collaboratively to support our student athletes. And as I said at the start of this, we are finishing our first athletic season of the year, even though it's April 16th. So we'd love to hear an update, Mr. Takahashi, and give us some stuff that we can look forward to as well.
Yes, thank you. I want to start off first by honoring Pat Lickus. Pat Lickus is an employee within the district for 37 years, the last 18 of those years as principal at Los Alamos High School. And he's been our lead commissioner for over 10 years. And unfortunately, he passed away on Monday. And I just want to honor him. He's done so much for this district and for this league and for all of the people in this community. And so he's going to be sorely missed. And I personally truly enjoyed working with him. I want to start off by going all the way back to June 8. June 8, we were given permission to start athletic activities. And so we started with the sport camps. And the reason why I want to go all the way back to that is because I want to thank all of our coaches who spent a lot of time since June 8 all the way up till now. So they've, I don't even know how many months that is. I think that's 9 months. But their goal was to provide for the kids because they knew that they needed something because everything was taken from them. And so since June 8, we were operating the sport camps where we had as many kids and as many programs running as possible. I would say this is that thanks to our coaches, because I told them, be ready to start, because when we get the go from the district, we want to hit the ground running. And we were maximizing our facility use the entire time. We were far ahead of the other schools in our district, as well as other schools in the area. In fact, we were getting a lot of phone calls from other schools asking, what are you doing? How are you doing? And so big thank you to our coaches who did that, did it, a lot of it as volunteer time, just to make sure that the kids we're provided with things to do. Going into the year, this year has been is rolled out as just one thing after another. There's not anything that's been planned or scheduled. We start something and all of a sudden the CDPH tells us, okay, we can open up this. And then we start something and they say, okay, we can open up this. This year has been a year of constant adjustment. The goal has been to create equitable 8-week seasons. And with that, there's had to be a lot of scheduling flexibility, both in facility use as well as game schedules, because there's been a lot of time conflict between within the league, between the 14 schools, our school and the 13 others. We've done a really good job of trying to create those schedules with as little conflict as possible and allow for as much participation as possible. And so that being said, the North Coast section and the CIF both had determined before any sports began that there would be no playoffs. And their reason for that is because when we have playoffs, then some students are participating, and they said, no, you know, it's a shortened year already. We need to get all students participating. And so they made the decision very early, there would be no section playoffs and no state playoffs. So the some of the things that we typically work around or work within is the students still need to be academically eligible for athletics. And in our meetings, when I say we, the athletic directors have been meeting once a week with Dr. Nickerson, our superintendent. He's taken a lot of time to work with us because there's so many things going on, so many new things, so many different things, so many changes and things. And as far as academic eligibility, we still have to hold the 2.0 standard, but we've been able to work with students that have not been able to meet it because it has been really challenging this year for a lot of reasons, and definitely academically. And so what we're doing with our academic waivers is working to get the students engaged, but the superintendent said, but make sure that you have a structure in place that they're improving their academics. And so we've been doing that. We've been working with a lot of kids, and it's been really successful. The kids, it's helped greatly to have them in person. That's made a huge difference, but also getting them involved in athletics, something that they really enjoy and that's important to them. And then using that to work on their academic progress. So that we've found it's been a lot of work, but it's been very rewarding. We also have continued the budget process and the contributions. And I want to give a big thank you to Dan Mead and Chris Palma. We actually did this budget process way back in May and June, assuming we were going to have sports as normal. And school was supposed to start in August. Athletics was supposed to start in August. And then all of a sudden, weeks before that, all of it was shut down. So all of the budget work that we did did not go by the wayside. When we were able to start with sports, we looked at it and realized, okay, how do we make it make sense for a shortened season? And we want to make sure that we honor the time and the financial support we get from the families. And so we cut a lot of things out of the budget because obviously there were a lot of things that we wouldn't need anymore. And our goal was, we still want to fund these programs, but we want to make sure that it makes sense. And so we did it in a way that most of the contribution money that's coming in is to pay for the coaches, because they're the ones that are putting in the time. And many of them had put in time as volunteers, as I said, since June 8th. And so I want to give a big thank you to Dan Mead and Chris Palma, who is Dan's the booster president. Chris Palma is the booster treasurer. Also for Andrea Powers, I estimate that between the four of us, we spent probably 80 hours just going through the budget process. So a big thank you to the boosters and to Dan and to Chris. Some questions that come up, it comes up from coaches, it comes up from parents, it comes up from athletes. And I will say this because there's so much information out there and so much changing information. Sometimes it's challenging to keep up with everything. The first one is the wearing of a face mask. So the way that the CDPH has it written in their guidelines is that a face mask is strongly encouraged when an athlete is in action, be it in practice or be it in a game. So strongly encouraged doesn't mean that it's required, but when they're not in action, if they're on the sideline, or maybe during practice, they're not in the drill, but they're waiting to get in the drill, then it's required that they have the face mask on. Now, that is the minimal requirement. Some of our programs, for example, our softball program, the coach said, hey, you know what? We should be wearing a mask all the time. And so when you go out to their games, you'll see that the players in the field will have a mask on. And is something that the coach said, you know, is this acceptable? I said, yeah, if you think that's an important standard, then it's acceptable. And so they do that. So as far as the coaches have to wear a face mask 100% of the time. When we have spectators at events, they have to have a face mask on 100% of the time. Another question came up about testing. Now, when sports first opened up, the individual sports did not have to do any testing. That was cross country, track and field, golf, tennis. No, not tennis. They had to. Oh no, tennis did not, etc. So all those sports didn't have to test. But when the next round of sports opened up, football and water polo were required to test until we got to a certain number as far as cases, then we wouldn't have to test anymore. Now, water polo didn't started later, so they never had to test, but football did. And so they needed to test once a week. And that was a highly successful program. It went really well. Now, football's ending this Saturday, but now all the indoor sports have to test. And we have a system in place where they're doing the PCR test once a week, and they're also doing a rapid test. And the reason for that is because when the CDPH opened up indoor sports, and this came out of a lawsuit that was settled in San Diego, we had to adhere to the NCAA rules. And that was test results had to be secured within 48 hours of contest. And so we created the schedule so that we had back-to-back games so that we can test and it would cover those 2 nights of games. And that would be for boys and girls basketball, boys and girls volleyball, wrestling, and competitive sport cheer. So in this district, and I will say this is, I want to give a big thank you to Dr. Nickerson and Nick Carpenter, who have done a lot of work putting the testing together. Nick Carpenter in particular, I think that's become his only job now, you know, working with the CDPH and these testing companies. But we have the PCR test available in the district, which the students are using. And then the athletic directors and athletic trainers were trained on the rapid testing. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna train and work alongside with the coaches to do the testing before they have games coming up. I just did my first round on Monday with one of the teams and it went really smooth. It's gonna work well. Some had asked, well, when will it be that the indoor sports won't have to test anymore? We have to get all the way down to the numbers that would represent the yellow tier. We're really not expecting that that's going to happen before the season's over. Carpooling, the question always comes up. Well, is carpooling allowed? Yes, it is. And in our district, what we've decided is it's going to be 1 student per bench. So if you have a sedan and you have a front seat and a back seat, 1 student in the front seat, 1 student in the back seat with all the windows rolled down. If you have an SUV with a front seat, a middle bench, and a back bench, then that's 1 student in the front, 1 in the middle, 1 in the back, all the windows rolled down. So that's the guideline we're giving the coaches that came from the district. Spectators, this question comes up often. So the way we're doing spectators, I'm going to break it up into outdoor sports and indoor sports. Now, the outdoor sports, by CDPH guidelines, it is supposed to be members of the immediate household of those participating, and that would be the athletes and the coaches. So we stick pretty close to that. Now, there are some sports where we have to monitor it more heavily because of the potential for spectator flow, and that would be football and boys lacrosse. In the other sports, such as boys and girls soccer and girls lacrosse, which are outdoors, not that we don't monitor it, but we do it a little differently where it's a little bit more user-friendly. As far as indoor sports, the indoor sports being boys and girls basketball, boys and girls volleyball, wrestling, and competitive sport cheer, the decision was made by the district that we would only allow 2 members of the household for each athlete and coach. And so that's, you know, once again, to make sure that our crowds that we have are safe, that we don't have too many people in there. And in all events, be it indoor or outdoor, once again, a mask must be worn 100% of the time, and distancing must be kept unless members of the same household. Moving forward, a lot of the coaches have asked, and I've told them, be prepared to do your summer activities as we've always done it. Start getting your requests in for facility use, start putting your programs together. And then for next year, going into 2021 and 2022, amazing to think that we're almost done with this year and getting ready for next year already. But for next year, everything that we're being told, both in the classroom, but also for athletics, the CIF and the North Coast section, as well as our district and all the schools, we're preparing for athletics as normal through the summer and going into next school year. So that was my list of things that I apologize. I'm not Mr. Technology. I didn't have the fancy screen share that everybody else did. Mr. Bell can attest to my technology challenges.
Yes, I would like to attest that as a math teacher in our district, you have successfully implemented distance learning and hybrid learning with screen shares in many times. But I also want to attest to how much work you have done as our athletic director to keep our programs up and running, Randy. So thank you so much for all of your work, and just appreciate the manner and way in which you you know, recognize the work that others have done and put into our athletic program. Just a couple of questions, and I know, Randy, that was a really thorough overview of where we're at and where we're going with athletics, and so appreciate that time. And I know it was a little lengthy, but really important information. Lots of questions came in about the test, the rapid testing, and can you just speak to well, there's a question about where we get the rapid test, testing for playing 2 sports, and then a question about when the rapid testing occurs, if it's before every game. So I know there's a window in which that has to happen, and then we'll turn it over to Ms. Walton to talk about some end of year events.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for doing 2 sports, the athletes have to get tested, and they can just do the PCR test. They don't have to do the rapid test. Now, by the NCAA guidelines, if you do only a rapid test, you have to do it every day. So that's why we have the PCR test as a weekly test, and then we do the rapid test before games. So the only time we actually have to do the rapid test for indoor sports is we have games on Wednesday and Thursday. And so on Tuesday after practice, that's when the teams will be testing. And the rapid test is a nasal swab test, but it's not the one where you have to insert it way up into the nasal cavity. It goes about a ½ inch in, and you swab one nostril for 15 seconds, the other nostril for 15 seconds, and then you stick it into the card, which has the reagent in it. And the process itself, sorry, Mrs. Powers, I'm not trying to
I'm
gross you
literally
out there.
just trying not to laugh at Andrea's face.
Yeah, sorry. It's yeah, sorry about that. And for each student to actually do this takes only about 60 seconds, but we have to wait for 15 minutes for the test results. So for the athletes themselves, they do it and they're out of there in 60 seconds. It's very fast, and then we get the result right away.
Awesome.
So it's and I don't and Mr. Bell, I'm not sure, you might have more information than this. I'm not sure what companies we get the PCR test or the rapid test from, but I know that it's been thoroughly investigated by Nick Carpenter.
Yeah. No, thank you, Randy. I appreciate it. And before we turn it over to Ms. Walton, Ms. Powers, do you want to give a quick plug for our AAA night, since it is really looking at our 21-22 athletic year?
Yeah, we're really excited to be hosting our AAA night, which is our Akalani's Athletic and Activities Night for our incoming 9th grade students and any new students to campus. It will be held on May 4th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. We are asking that it will be in person, which we are really excited about. We are asking that families with the last name A through L come between 5:30 and 6, and families with the last name M through Z come between 6 and 6:30. We will have all of our sports represented. There will be a coach, an athlete here. We will have activities table represented. We will have some of our clubs here, and we'll also have our parent groups, APAB, APC, LPI, and Athletic Boosters there to welcome all of our new families. It's a really, really great night, and we look forward to hosting it in person this year.
Great. Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, Mr. Takahashi, thanks again. Appreciate you taking the time and appreciate the thorough update. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Walton, who can walk us through some end of year events. I think you have some students in class with you, which is why your mask is on. But Mr. Plant has the slides and he can start sharing if you're ready for him to do so.
Yeah, I'm ready. I am in class, so if you see students coming my way, that is why, but so fun. And I'm so happy to be here. So thanks for all, being present. And I'm happy to talk through student activities end of year. I will just say I'm kind of on this natural high after hosting senior breakfast yesterday and today. Just so nice to see seniors safely gathered, enjoying kind of a traditional event. And I'm going to walk us through all that is to come in the next 6 weeks in hopes that your student really opts in. So with that, Mr. Plant, let's do this. These first couple slides are things just for all students. And I know Anna was here earlier, so I won't go into too much detail, but there are a couple highlights in the next 5 weeks that I would really love for students to take part in. If your student has opted into hybrid and is on campus today, next Friday, we are going to host the Special Olympics just for our essential skills students. And during academy or their lunch period, they could just come out and watch that event happen on a very safe scale, but a nice chance to support a population of students here. We definitely have some more equity work happening during the month of May as we look at Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We have a great speaker coming our way May 12th at 6:30. Look in the newsletter for more info, but that's a great date for your calendar, along with the continued dialogue around curriculum. We're doing some programming for our Frosh students, so some lunch stuff happening next week, which is awesome. We are in the midst of Earth Week and have some great speakers coming next week every day at lunch. And then we are doing homecoming and we are in the midst of really rocking it. I got to watch some skit practices yesterday, which just warmed my heart. And on the next slide, I'm going to tell you some ways your student can get involved in homecoming. This is a calendar. Your student has seen it in cohort. There are virtual activities. There are in-person activities. No matter where your student is, they can opt in. For dress up days, we're using Goose Chase, which is an app we used in the fall. For lunchtime, there's both virtual and in-person lunch activities Tuesday through Friday, which is pretty awesome. The students have worked really hard. And then we have programmed some afternoon, evening activities for students to opt into in person. So we're going to do an in-person movie night. We're going to do some tie-dye. We are going to do a watch party for the drama play, which I'm super excited about. So please ask your student about it. Please ask them what they are opting into. Next slide. 3 things I really want to make sure you know. 1 is hallway decorating, Sunday, April 25th. Students have gotten a sign-up genius so that we make sure there's not too many students on campus, that they can sign up to show up for 2-hour shifts. Anyone can come. I have 0 artistic ability. I really mean 0. But I know I can chalk or paint. So it's a great chance to socialize. And our halls always look so nice. The students just do such a great job. Then that Thursday evening is such a great family affair. We are going to live stream the skits. So typically parents don't always get to see them, but this year you do. So please tune in. You might get a cameo from Mr. Bell and Mr. Plant and Ms. Powers. There is a staff number being formed. There's some live performances from some of our really talented students. And then the class skits and judging will happen live, which is pretty cool. And then I mentioned we are watching the drama play live in between the gyms as they perform it live. And that's something that your student is welcome to attend.
I feel like we got a little bamboozled right there with that commitment to the cameo.
I mean, it's really simple. I've simplified it for the year. And Mr. Bell, I know you want to have like your last hurrah as part of homecoming. So we have to have you part of it, you know? Another Dawn's dialogue, I might show one of your first hurrahs, but
I think that we lost that hurrah.
Okay. All right. Next thing for everyone, and we ran this last year and had some real success with it. And so I want to invite you and your student to tune in as we run a speaker series with some pretty incredible folks in and around our community. It really is geared towards seniors, but we also wanted to open it up to anyone. And this is just a chance to hear from some professionals, some learned lessons, how they got to where they are. The first one, he lives in Lafayette and he is the CEO of Eat, Learn, Play, which is Steph and Aisha Curry's nonprofit that works in Oakland. So I'm excited to hear about Chris's journey. Ms. Powers and I are going to host a Women in Leadership series with Danette Layton, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of the Pac-12 Network and good friends with Heidi Scavarna. So that's how we got that introduction. Really, really cool. I'm bringing a high-level Bank of America employee to talk to students a little bit about finance. And then we end it by bringing back some of our alumni to talk about their first year with whatever steps they took, whether that was college or gap year or community college. So I will be sending out those Zoom links. It is all on Zoom and anyone is welcome to opt in and listen in. So please come. I also just want to make sure if you have a senior student or you know of a senior student, some things that we are really working hard to provide and some dates. So we have our senior prom. It is Akalani seniors only. It is going to be amazing. It's going to be so great. And it's May 15th, 6 p.m. Students will start to hear information next week on ticket prices, how to sign up, what it's going to look like and all that great stuff. I've heard some rumblings of they're already talking about it, which is awesome. And it's on campus. Then we are for the second year doing a car rally through downtown Lafayette. Such a win last year. It was just so wonderful to see. That's for seniors to participate and also our community to watch if that's something you're interested in. So that's the date, May 21st, 5 p.m. And then for seniors, we are going to run our time of reflection, seniors only in person, and we will live stream it. And it's going to be held on our campus. A great chance for seniors just to reflect on their time at Akalani's, hear from some of their peers, hear from some staff members, and celebrate one another. And that's also a nice time to have a family dinner following that event and talk about it since families are going to watch it live stream, students in person, and then connect afterwards. And then I know that our admin team will be getting out information on graduation and what that looks like. I just talked to senior liaisons yesterday. We're going to really try and get out a blast every week to highlight what your seniors should be doing or opting into, but please make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter as we get information out on cap and gown pickup and memory frame pickup, speaker auditions, all that good stuff. We'll make sure we put it in the newsletter and then also the Daily Dawn. Yes, those are all the ways. Students have done such a good job on social media this year. So if you're not connected to at least the top one, AHS_Dawns, it's a great chance to see what's happening on campus and virtually. And lastly, thanks for such great support throughout this year. I will say one final push. We will be asking for kind of a significant number of parent volunteers for prom, and that'll go out through the newsletter. So if that's something that you are willing to opt into, we would really, really greatly appreciate it. Those volunteers will just make sure we have a really safe event for our seniors.
Awesome. A question came in about graduation as well, which I can speak to briefly, but I want to make sure, Ms. Walton, I don't think there were any other questions that came in for you. So thanks for showing up and giving us that quick flyby of everything we can look forward to with the rest of the year and all the work that you and your students are doing to help make it happen. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks y'all. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. In terms of graduation, we did share at our senior parent meeting, which was recorded and can be found on our YouTube channel. Graduation will be, it's that Friday, May 28th. We're still looking at a start time of 6 p.m. And at this point, all 4 of our comprehensive high schools which would be Campo, Miramonte, Las Lomas, and of course, the best high school, Acalanes High School. We will be coordinating to make sure that we all have the same parameters around our graduation. And at this point, as we work with our superintendent and county health, it looks like we feel that we can accommodate 4 spots per graduating senior for our graduation. So each senior will be getting tickets that they will give, and then those tickets will be collected at the door for those families to show up. So it'll be spaced out on the football field. It will be at one time, and it will be all together, which will be really nice to have that event in person all together. And then we will live stream using the same company we did last year. So it'll be a really high quality live stream with both wide and close up shots of the graduates as they get their diploma. And we'll still be doing all of our normal, we'll have the band there playing. We'll make sure that we have Studio One there taking pictures, and so we'll be able to celebrate the graduates on that day. So the event itself might be a little longer just with the spacing and timing of the event, but we still think it'll start at 6 p.m. But we'll communicate more details out as that gets closer and things get approved through county health for the plans that we have. All right. Hey, it's 11 o'clock and you've been sticking with us for a while, and I'm going to do a quick overview of our instructional models for next year, because I do believe this is going to be a point of high interest for you all as our parents, and to really hopefully have some conversations with your students on what is going to be appropriate for them and for you as a family for next year. This is literally like hot off the press, just approved on Wednesday's board meeting, but we've had a lot of conversation around what our instructional models will look like next year. So I want to start by saying that, everything is based off of, and Mike, you can hit that next slide, but everything is based off of the county guidelines. So we are making decisions really assuming that we'll have similar guidelines in place, even though we know that, according to our governor, the current directive is that our tiers will go away come June 15th. However, we still see some similar guidelines in terms of the health and safety standards that will have to be in place for schools. So with that in mind, we are planning on having all students attend in-person instruction 5 days a week. It will follow, the bell schedule will follow our pre-pandemic schedule of having all your classes on Monday and then block days on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, with academy periods on Wednesday and Friday. It will be required attendance. We will not be live streaming from the classrooms, and students will have to attend their academy and be in person 5 days a week. There could be some potential modifications to that schedule as we've been discussing on what that will look like. First, we have really loved and valued having this academy cohort time to work with our students and share about some what we believe to be really some important information and some specific and needed school-wide programming for our students. While I don't envision us redrafting a whole schedule that includes a weekly academy cohort, we are trying to figure out how we can embed that into our schedule in different ways without losing the academy time that we think is so valuable for our students as well, to work on specific intervention, get additional support, all that our students really appreciate about academy, and that we have come to really appreciate as staff, recognizing the need for that. There's also conversation around if we're going to need to continue to figure out how to split lunch times in order to adhere to the health guidelines and to keep students distant during lunch, which is the biggest concern of spreading COVID is at that time when masks are off and students are outside eating. So those are some of the considerations that might adjust the schedule a little bit, but we do believe that it is best to be in person, and that this is the best model for our students, and that we should be open 5 days a week next school year, starting in the fall. However, let me just say, in terms of like the health and safety, the current guidelines are kind of what we're basing some of our decisions on right now. So at this point, it would be 3 feet in the classroom from student to student. And the non-classroom times and events would still have to require the 6 foot of distancing for our students. We've been taking this into account and looking at our classroom maxes based off of a 3 feet model. So we are considering that when we look at building our master schedule. We do anticipate that masks will still have to be worn at all times, except for when eating. And that we'll continue to evaluate based off of what public health recommends and requires as what's most effective to help prevent the continued spread of COVID for next school year. However, we know that there are some extenuating circumstances that might need to have an alternate program offering for our students. And we really have 2 offerings, and this is sort of like a quick overview of those offerings. And then I'm going to go in depth into our virtual academy because it's new. So we will continue to have our Akalani Center for Independent Study. ACIS is what it's commonly referred to as when students and staff talk about it. It is a current option, and we see that as something that will be ongoing. We recognize that it is a place that needs continued evaluation and updating to be as successful as possible for our students. It does have an in-person component, even though it's independent study. So there is a minimum requirement of 1 check-in per week. However, there's options for more than 1. And then throughout the rest of that week, when they're not in person, students are working independently. And there is room for a concurrent enrollment allowed. And what we mean by concurrent enrollment is that a student may be able to take, a class or 2 at DVC while also attending ACIS or even a class at one of our at their home school if it's not offered through independent study and is able to make that work. That's something that we already offer. We have a handful of our students go there. It's located at the Del Valle campus in Walnut Creek, right there near the entrance of Rossmore, and it's district-wide. So students from all 4 of our comprehensive school sites do attend. I don't want to spend too much time talking about independent study as it's something that's gone on before and will continue, but I do want to talk a little bit about our virtual academy. This will be a fully remote option that has asynchronous and synchronous class time and assignments throughout the week. And it will not allow for any concurrent enrollment. And I'm going to speak to that in the next few slides here. So Mike, you can click to that next slide. Virtual Academy is really something that is being designed for just for next year as an opportunity and place for students who are medically fragile or whose households would be at a more unique or high risk by students attending in person. This is similar to the discussion around the need to have a cohort C for this current hybrid model. While we know not all students in our cohort C group are medically fragile or in a home that has an increased high risk, there does need to be that option for those students who are at higher risk due to COVID or their families are at higher risk. So that is what this offering is for, and which is why it's really for a one-year offering as we continue to get people vaccinated, understand more and more about COVID and how we can keep our community safe from the spread of COVID. So it will be a one-time, one-year offering. The program itself will have limited elective offerings, and that will really be determined based off of the number of students enrolled and number of students who sign up for that. And due to the nature of why we are offering a virtual academy, again, it's really designed specifically just for the medically fragile students and their families. There will not be an opportunity to participate in or extracurricular events or activities while they are enrolled in virtual academy. What we mean by that is students cannot play a sport or attend any of the extracurricular events, whatever that might look like next year, whether that's dances, club meetings, whatever that is. Performances they won't be able to attend if they choose the virtual academy offering. That's different than our ACIS program where students enrolled in ACIS can still play on a sports team or attend extracurricular events. In the virtual academy offering, special education services will be provided remotely, but there also will need to be a discussion on whether that placement is appropriate for students with specific learning need. So that would be part of that conversation. So Mike, you can hit that next slide. The Virtual Academy schedule. So as I said, our in-person students will follow our pre-pandemic block schedule. The Virtual Academy students will follow our fall distance learning schedule, and then there will be some adjustments as needed based off of enrollment offerings, et cetera. So there will be a requirement for daily virtual attendance, just as there was during our distance learning schedule. And then that will be followed by either a synchronous lesson virtually that's given virtually, or some asynchronous instruction. So again, very similar to our distance learning schedule that we had implemented in the fall up until we came back in hybrid. We envision our virtual academy being taught by our AUHSD teachers following AUHSD curriculum. However, some of the elective courses based off of the availability and signups might have to be offered through our Fuel Ed program offering, which is essentially an online class offering that we use at different times for credit recovery currently. Also, we're not sure what electives or course offerings we're going to be able to offer. It's going to be based off of the students who sign up. And that specifically includes not just the electives like visual and performing arts, which some just can't happen virtually to the effectiveness that we would like to see happen, but that also includes some of our AP classes. And that again will be determined based off of signups. Students who are part of the virtual academy will have that noted on their transcript that it was a virtual course that was offered, so it wasn't an in-person course that was offered. However, if they're a senior and then graduating through our virtual academy, they will receive a diploma from their home school. So while they won't be enrolled in homeschool courses, the diploma will reflect their homeschool. Part of the enrollment process has to happen really quickly because we need to figure out a master schedule and assigning teachers and getting students enrolled and what those numbers are going to look like. So at this point, all students are enrolled in our regular Akalani's comprehensive school. When you as families and as your students sign up for courses, they signed up as if they were coming back to Akalani's under whatever the learning model is going to be. That learning model is currently in person 5 days a week starting in the fall. So that's how your student is currently signed up for. If you want to feel, or if you feel that your child needs to be enrolled in Virtual Academy, or you want to explore the independent study option, that has to happen through an intra-district transfer request. So that will come out today. It will run for from April 16th to April 30th. And then students and families will have 7 days to change their decision once they submit. And then after that 7-day marker, we will be blocking any transfers, and that includes going back to an in-person model because we really do have to know what those numbers are going to be and then be able to build that schedule. However, students will have the option mid-year to re-enroll back in their regular comprehensive school site if situations have changed for that student or for that family. The other thing that I want to highlight about you can keep going, Mike. The other thing I want to highlight about that enrollment process is that the communication will be coming from the district. I'll of course reference and link to it as well, and we'll have that on our website, but you should be getting a communication today from the district. It will either come, I would imagine it would come from Aida Glemmy, who is our Associate Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, but it could come from our superintendent as well, but it will come out from the district today, and then there'll be links on the website to access. And as I mentioned earlier, that deadline will be Friday, April 30th. We really have to hold to those deadlines because we have to figure out what our course offerings are going to look like for next year. Because we know this is a lot and there's a lot there and you might have a lot of questions, there will be a district parent informational night on Tuesday, April 20th. That'll be at 6 p.m. And it will answer questions about Virtual Academy and ACIS. So I would really encourage you to attend should that be something that you're considering and you want to learn more about. Of course, I'm happy to answer any questions that come up today or as you learn more, but that will be a great opportunity to get some answers as well. And then I keep referencing this, but the schedule will be based off of student enrollment. So it really depends on the courses that we offer will really depend on how many students we have that sign up for those different programs. I did want to also mention that we will have a task force with all stakeholder input involved to really examine what the public health guidelines are and what that means and looks like for our in-person and our fully remote students for the 21-22 school year. So we'll be looking at that, examining, and then that's where I say we might make some adjustments as we go. The last thing that I want to say about the scheduling for next year is about the wellness support for our students. And so Mike, you can hit that next slide, but we know that we have like a really high task, heavy task, heavy lift, I don't know what the expression is, of supporting our students with this transition back as things start to open up. It's something that we felt really charged with opening up in hybrid and something that we know will need to continue. So district-wide, we've been doing a lot of this examination and definitely site-wide as well. We've been really looking at how we can support our students. If you've read the APC newsletter, you would see that was part of what some of the grant money went into, providing resources for our students to engage in some social emotional support and have some tools that they can engage with. We, of course, are so grateful for LPI's financial support to our wellness center, who's giving the wellness center tools and resources for our students as well. I just dropped mine, but there's these here, I'll find it right here. There's these acupuncture rings that Wellness bought, and they're just something that your students have been given like a little slip of paper with them that helps them to focus on their breathing, and so they can be sitting in class if they feel some of that anxiety come up, and you just move this ring up and down your fingers, and it's a way in which to kind of process and deal with some of the emotions that might be coming up for our students. I know Mr. Plant, Ms. Powers, and I are like, we got our rings, we're here. So as we go through this, we're using some of those resources as well. But we know we need to continue to examine and provide additional resources through our wellness centers across the district and look at what resources we need for our students to put into place. And that includes resources during summer. So not just during the school year, but how can we provide some of these wellness resources to our students throughout the summer? And then how do we embed some of these social emotional components into the learning that's happening in the classrooms and into the curriculum? And so really developing some systems of intervention that are based off of need, not just academic intervention, but that social emotional support and intervention that is needed as well, regardless of the learning model that a student is in next year. So that would be across our comprehensive sites, our independent study site, and this virtual academy. How can we embed those resources to support all of our students, not just our students who are in person? So we know that that's part of the work that we have before us as well. So that's a really quick highlight and overview of next year's learning model offerings. I would encourage you, if you have questions, to attend that parent information night. But I see that there are some questions that have come in as well. So
do you want me to read them to you,
sure,
Travis?
yeah,
or you?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So the first is about the structure of the virtual academy and whether we anticipate that teachers will have both students in the room and also in the same space serve the students in virtual academy. And I think I heard you say no to that.
Yeah, no, correct. We will follow our distance learning model from the fall, which means all students will be virtual at all times. So there will be 0 in-person instruction. It will not be a hybrid-based model, and there will not be any live streaming from classrooms of students being in person. So there won't be any of that.
Okay, thank you. The second one is about the medically, you know, I guess it's around how is the district monitoring the medically fragile? Is there a need for a doctor's note, and kind of how is that going to work?
Yeah. No, it really will be based off of, we cannot require, I'm saying something that I'm only like 90% positive of, but I'm just going to run with it. We cannot require a doctor's note to prove the need for a virtual academy, which is why I was really trying to emphasize the limited program offerings of what that virtual academy is going to look like. It's not going to be the same of what happened in the fall, because in the fall, all students were virtual, and we were kind of forced to get as creative as possible to run some classes that really just can't happen virtually. I think specifically of some of our CTE classes like woodshop, where we can't just tell students to go use a skill saw in their garage without doing any hands-on training of what that really is going to look like, or our auto shop program, or you even heard today, some of our science labs. I mean, dissecting a paper cat is really incredibly different than actually a true dissection through a science lab. Again, we always come back to cat dissection. I'm not. And so it's going to be limited offerings, and you know, we believe it is best for students to be in person, but we also know that there is a need to provide that option for students for this next school year. And therefore we are providing that option. And while we want to make it the best experience possible and give access to as much as possible for that students, it's not going to be the same as being in person. So we can't require a medical note for documentation, but there will be an application process for that intra-district transfer. And then depending on availability, there might be some conversations on, you know, what that looks like and how to best support the student based off of, you know, what that need truly is. Yeah. Any other questions that
Thank you. That was the last question I saw in the Q&A.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I know that there's a lot of really important information. I'm sorry.
Travis, you got muted.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I had someone walk in real quick. So we covered a lot of information. This will be posted on our YouTube page. It'll go out in the Parent Club newsletter on Sunday. So if you want to rewatch any of this to get clarity on the information, or should you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, as we'd be more than happy to respond and walk you or your student through the learning models for next year, or any other information that they might need. So Mike, you look like you're on the verge of saying something. So I keep...
Sorry, I was going to say, I think there's one more slide about finals week. Would you like me to put that up and talk about finals week?
Oh yeah, that's great. I was so focused on on the academy or the learning model options for next year that I forgot ending this year. We have one more slide about finals. And this is also kind of hot off the press. The long and the short of finals week is, you should know, we don't have school on Friday. So it is a floating teacher work day. Teachers have to work 2 out of 3 work days throughout the year. And this is the last one for the year. And many teachers use this day to finish grading their finals and then get the grades submitted as needed. Therefore, because there's no school on Friday, we are shifting our week so that the Tuesday, Wednesday schedule will become the Monday, Tuesday schedule, and the Thursday, Friday schedule will become the Wednesday, Thursday schedule. So you can see it posted here for your reference. Kristen, you also look like you have a question.
Well, I just accidentally just shrunk my entire Zoom screen, but for me, I couldn't see the entire schedule.
Correct.
So
I only just screenshot the top of it, so you can't see the bottom half of the schedule, but we'll link the page on onto our website. What you should know about finals week is that we're not changing the bell schedule as we normally would when we're all in person for a finals week. So there is, and then there will be no asynchronous day that week because there is just no school on Friday. The last day of school is actually the 27th with graduation on the 28th. Teachers have been told that the length of the final cannot extend beyond a single block period. So it can't be something that extends 2 blocks, but the teacher can choose on what day that final is going to be offered. And I think most importantly, what people want to hear is that if the final is done electronically, meaning it's done through Canvas, that students won't be required to take the online test in person, so that there's a equitable experience for students who are either home or who are in person. That's for a very kind of standard final model. There are, of course, some caveats to that, which teachers can explain to their students and will be explaining as finals week gets closer, including if it's a presentation for a final, that might have to extend over the course of the 2 days, but the student would only be presenting at one part of that one day. So the student won't have to present for 2 block periods, but might be presenting during one part of those 2 block days. Or if it's an essay that they've been working on for 2 weeks and it gets submitted on the day that they have the class, that's something that might look like as well. So again, teachers can answer more specific questions and we'll be outlining more specifically with the students as it gets closer. That's the official end of our Dawn's Dialogue for the month of April. We've got one more coming at you. I believe it's May 21st. I'm not sure of the date, but I will be publicizing that out. Again, thank you to everyone who stuck with us. It is the 21st. Look at that.
Yes, it is the 21st, Travis.
Awesome. Not just a hat rack, my friends. Not just a hat rack. All right. It's Friday and I need to stop talking. So thanks everyone for joining in and have a great Friday and great rest of a great weekend. All right. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Go on.